Welcome to another Thursday night Bible study, brought to you as a ministry of SIGBC.
As we continue our contemplation of what God calls us to be, and this is the B number 10. Today we're going to begin a 3-week series on the importance of being a giving individual by contemplating Jesus' most difficult admonition concerning giving, concerning being a generous, kind person. We're going to be studying Luke chapter 6, verse 30 through 36. And when we think, again, of the idea of giving at Christmas time, we usually think of our children and the joy that they experience on Christmas morning when they come downstairs bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, eager to celebrate the season of giving, especially partaking in the receiving end of it. And then they open their presents and celebrate the day together. And it's easy for us to say, hey, I love giving to my kids. I love giving to my grandkids and seeing the joy on their face when they open their presents. But technically, that's not the kind of generosity that Jesus is calling on us to have. Let's read Luke chapter 6, verse 30 through 36, and then we'll contemplate 5 different things from this passage. Actually, we're going to contemplate verse 38 at the end as well. We'll see how much time we have, how far we can get in this passage before it's time to end. But let's begin with reading. Luke chapter 6, verse 30 through 36, and then we'll mention 37 and then contemplate verse 38 later on. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies. Do good to them. And lend to them, even your enemies, without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be the children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. When we contemplate this passage, which is a corollary of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, when we contemplate the admonitions of Christ concerning the heart of the giver in the call to be giving, the very first thing that we notice is that the call to give is not based on how others treat us, but on how we would like to be treated in similar circumstances by others. And this is a very important distinction that Jesus is making, because it's easy to be nice to people who are nice to us. It is easy to be generous to people who we know are going to be generous to us. It is easy to give knowing that you're going to get something in return. You've probably heard of the trade-up game. The trade-up game is where you start out with something small and you try to trade it for something that is better. And then you take that and you try to trade that for something that is better. And you take that and you try to trade that for something that's better. And the idea is, I've heard of stories of people who started out with like a quarter and ended up with a car, you know, because they kept making trades with people who wanted what they had, and they kept trading up. And the idea is to keep trading up. If you know you're going to get something better than what you're giving, then it's not difficult to give up that which you have. And so that's not the idea behind being giving. Christ's idea behind being giving is this: the call to give is not based on how others treat us, but on how we would like to be treated in similar circumstances. In other words, giving is supposed to be one-sided. The heart of the giver is supposed to be unidirectional. That is, what can I do for you? It is not supposed to be based on reciprocity. I do for you, you do for me. I often teach that even in marriage, the idea of reciprocity is probably not a good idea. Because reciprocity says, I do for you, you do for me. I do things to make you happy, you do things to make me happy. And the anticipation is that when I do something for you, I'm happy to do it because I knew you're going to do something for me. That's not the biblical idea of being giving. And so when we talk about, when we give these little talks to married couples about the biblical basis for the marriage relationship, we share the idea that marriage is not based upon I do for you, you do for me. Marriage is based upon the idea of I do for you, and I do for you. In other words, the giver has no assumption of something in return. And in marriage, if we can truly learn to be giving and anticipate nothing in return for what we do for our spouses, that's when we experience true joy in our marriage relationships. Because it's easy to become unhappy when we do. You've heard people say before, I've done so much for this person and they do nothing for me. Well, that misses the idea of what giving is all about. Now, naturally, remember, we just mentioned the idea that it's not I do for you, you do for me. What true giving in marriage is supposed to be is I do for you, and I do for you, and I do for you, and I do for you. In other words, the husband desires the happiness of his wife, and likewise the wife desires the happiness of her husband. That is the heart behind God's call to be giving. And so the call to give is not based on how others treat us, but on how we would like to be treated in similar circumstances. And so that's why Jesus says, give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Remember, the context of this passage on giving is if anybody slaps you on the cheek, turn the other cheek also. If anyone compels you to walk 1 mile, walk with them 2 miles. If anyone takes your coat, give them your tunic also. In other words, have a heart that is willing to not hold bitterness, not hold resentment, but be kind and compassionate and giving, not expecting anything in return. So, how would you like to be treated in any given circumstance? That's how you should treat others, regardless of how they treat you, is what Jesus is saying. Very difficult. But then he continues upping the difficulty level. The second observation he makes is the call to give is based on love that motivates giving without considering benefits to self. In other words, we're not just called to give, we're called to love and give out of a heart of love regardless of how it benefits us personally. And so in verses 32 through 34, he says, if you love those who love you, so what credit is that to you? Even sinners, that is, even people who are self-centered and maybe bad people, they love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You're both getting something out of it, but you know you're going to get something out of it yourself. Is why you do something. No, he says no. If you love those who love you, there's no credit in that. If you are good to those who are good to you, well, there's no credit in that. Even sinners do that. He says, look, if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Because you haven't lost anything, and you've been able to help them, and you're going to get back what you loaned to them. Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. You see, the call to give is based on love that motivates giving without considering benefits to self. When we give a loan, are we helping to meet this person's genuine need? If the answer is yes, and we have the means to help to meet that need, then the question should not be, are they going to be able to pay me back though? No, the question should be, what is that need? Because remember, do unto others as you would have them do unto you in similar circumstances. We are called to give, and that call to give, not just to give, but to be giving. That is, to have this giving as a part of our being ourself. We are called to give, and that call to give is based upon love that motivates giving without considering benefits to self. Remember, John, later in his life, said, whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother or sister have a need and shuts up his bowels of compassion toward him, how can that person say the love of God dwells in them? If you truly have God's love in your heart, John is saying, then compassion will result in doing. Whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother have need and shuts up his bowels of compassion toward him, how can that person say the love of God dwells in them? So, it's a call to love, and that love motivates us to give without considering benefits to self. Number 3, the call to give is a call to do good. And by the way, even to our enemies, Jesus adds, without expecting to get anything back in return. That's right. The call to give is a call to do good without expecting to get anything back in return. The good that we do for others is its own reward. And the call to do good is a call to live out the love that we have experienced in Christ. And in the same way that God loved us, unworthy though we are to extend our love by being giving to others, worthy or not as well. So the call to give is a call to do good even to our enemies without expecting to get anything back in return. Verse 35, I should say, and then the final observation before we jump to 37 and 38 is, but love your enemies. Do good to them. And lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He, that is God, is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked, even those who do not acknowledge God as God, and therefore do not give thanks to God for who he is and what he has done for them. Even worse than that, those who deliberately choose to reject God's love and choose to do harm to their neighbor. Jesus is saying, God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. And so he says, in the same way, love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to get anything back. That's right, it's not the anticipation of reciprocity. Because God is watching, and God is the one that rewards those who diligently seek him. When a parent does buy a gift for their children, or a grandparent buys a gift for their grandchildren, they do so usually with at least this similar idea, which is, I love buying gifts to give to my grandkids. I love buying gifts to give to my kids. And I don't expect them to buy anything for me. I just love seeing their happy faces on Christmas Day when they open the presents that we were able to get for them. And so there is a sense in which Christmas is a season of giving, because it does fulfill this biblical concept of give without expecting anything in return.
Thank you for listening. You can also join us in person or live on Facebook every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Japan time. This has been a ministry of Sakahogi International Grace Baptist Church.